this is going to be our B-Variant build guide with our hardware. A couple of disclosures. This is all of the thoughts, opinions, and techniques in this guide are our own, my own opinion, and not endorsed by anyone. Depending on how your prints came out, your results may vary. This is a combination of clear PLA and blue PETG, so we'll see how that goes. But first is with any U channel build, we're going to start by installing our hex standoffs into all of our parts. So we're going to grab the parts that need hex standoffs and install those. I'm going to set the other ones aside. So it's going to be the stock, the magwell pieces, and then these other here. So 5 parts. That's going to be a total of 12 inserts to not this one though. Oop. Wow. So that's going to be 5 parts, 12 inserts. There you go. So to do that, I'm going to use my Phillips screwdriver here. You're going to need mostly just a Phillips screwdriver, but some tools here and there, picks, files, and lubricant as you go. But I'm just going to start with, so I'm going to insert a hex nut into the cutout. I want to make sure that that goes all the way in. So I'm going to drive it through with another screw. You could also use a pick or something just small and pokey. Just to poke from the other side to get that hex standoff through a little more. And to make sure that it's all the way through, I'm going to do a low torque, and I'm going to drive that hex insert all the way down. So that screw will pull in the hex standoff and get it into place. And then I will use another screw on a low torque, and this screw will drive, let's see, this particular one is going to drive just behind it to hold it in place right there as far as you need. And then I'll take that screw out. Do the same for the other side. Okay, that one's done. Move on to the next. Same thing, although the screws are going to be different depending on the piece. Set that in, drive that through. So this piece in particular, you're just going to drive the screw. This one's going to drive the screw into the side of the hex nut. It's not going to sit behind, but it's going to drive straight into it. So you want to stop once it hits right there. Don't go any more than that, or you could strip the part. Same for the other side. Oops. So in this build guide, I should also mention that all the hardware I'm using here is from the hardware kit. The exact quantities that you see in front of me will be included in your kit if you get it from us. Drive this screw. Hopefully the shadows don't make it too hard to see. I like that better. 5/16 screw on the left and a 3/8 screw on the right. Swap this for a 5/16 screw is what you'll want to use on this particular piece. It's actually the same as the U Caliburn as well. I'm going to use 5/16 screws. 3/8 sticks up too far. So that one's done. Then we'll do the same with the rest of these. It's going to get more and more tricky as we go. We'll just slide that in there. That's it, right? Poke this side. Use gravity. There you go. Hold that in place. And then use a screw here to lock this one in. Again, just tighten it down until you feel it tighten, because it's going to go into the side of that hex standoff, but you don't want to over tighten it. So right there. Perfect. If your hex standoff, moves while you're screwing it in, then it is not tight enough. The retaining screw. This one is also fun. Maybe put it through here, get it in that hole. You know, try to straighten it out. There we go. Poke it through with this hole here. There we go. Perfect. Pull that all the way through. Should note that these are all the original files. I don't think I've really changed anything on them. We'll talk about that when we get to the internals, because that I have changed, but these shells should be the default. So, yeah. That. Try to screw into this side. So this one is the worst, I think. I can't remember though, but gotta slide that in there like that, if you can see that. There you go. And then get that centered in there. There you go, just poke it in. Same thing. I'm gonna do this one. So this one goes behind. That's nice how we're like engaging the standoff. Do this one here. Time lapse. You also do this one in front. Go like that way. Maybe use it. Okay. One more. Push that in there. There we go. All right, last two. The B-Variant is a design by Stephen Rupp, or Ruppernutter, on Thingiverse, based off of course, the U Caliburn by Captain Slug. You can use a pick to push the standoff all the way in. You just want to make sure the standoff is all the way in. There you go. Okay, that is all the standoffs. Next, I like to just work on the pieces that will hold my barrel in. Just because it's easy to get to now, it might be hard to get to later. So I'm going to do a 1032 hex nut and a 5/16 length 1032 short screw. And do the same on the front shroud piece. Again, that's a 1032 hex nut on the inside. Hold that in place, flip it over, and then do that short screw in there. There you go. Just tighten it down so that it grabs into the hex screw or the hex nut, but you can still put a barrel in it later. And set those aside. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and install half of my U channel so I have a base to build everything around. So I'm going to take my bar, and on this side where you have the less of a gap on the end than this side, or if your bar has U Caliburn bars, will have two holes here. B-Variant does not need the second hole, so I've omitted those. And that should line up. And depending on how your prints came out or how the bars came out, you may need to just file or cut off a little bit of the bar to get those holes to line up. But here they fit perfectly. And then I'll work on the sear. Now this sear is a single piece printed sear. It's pretty solid. I believe it is 6 walls, 100% infill, with like a standard Caliburn sear. However, if you are worried about it flexing, depending on how your prints came out, you can use a modified segment of Caliburn priming bar from a regular U Caliburn or Caliburn kit, and that'll slide in from the back. That you then mark and drill a 1/4 inch hole, and of course cut to length. If you are doing that method, you can request that from us on the U Caliburn hardware kit listing, because we've been sending out our U Caliburn hardware kits without that priming bar material, because we found this method works just fine, even with, you know, K26 and heavier spring loads. So You want your standoff to fit in the hole. You're gonna have a sear, pivot, round standoff in the sear. Make sure that fits, okay? And then we're gonna install it in the sear pivot piece, and it's gonna go in this orientation. Now, I like to use Loctite on all my metal connections, which I forgot to do, so I'm gonna go back and do it on the U channel. But we'll just set that in here. Oops. Like so. And we'll use some thread lock on the metal to metal connections, especially on the metal to metal connections that move. You don't want to over tighten this because you want this to be able to pivot. So tighten those just enough so that it holds on. And we'll flip it over, do the other side. Metal metal connection, use thread lock. Tighten that down just enough so that it can still pivot, but it's secure. If you tighten that too much, you could squish the prints together and end up resulting in, you know, pinching movement. So you don't want to tighten the screws so this pinches at all. That's why the thread lock is very important. Okay, and next we're going to install the kind of the grip assembly. We're going to put a 1032 hex nut into this cutout here. We used to use a lock nut, but the nut really doesn't have anywhere to go even if it does loosen, so you shouldn't have a problem. I'm going to clean out just some of this debris here. 1032 hex nut. I'm going to make that sit in all the way. There we go. I'm going to add our long threaded rod into that. Hoping to not have to do it in this order, but you have to. And that can be sticking out just a little bit. That's not a big deal. Then you're gonna put on this side piece, and you want these to fit into each other, which can be a little difficult. So those slots should line up into the prints. And I've already modified these to make them fit better. But I found that worst case scenario, if you just break off these tabs, you're not gonna lose very much. So I might do that on these ones depending on how prints came out. That actually might fit in just fine if I give it a little tap. So I'm gonna go off camera onto the floor here, and I'm just gonna give it a little tap with the mallet. Again, if you can't get those in, just break them off. Be a little OCD today. Now this is your order of operations that's kind of tricky. So you'll want to put another hex nut on top of this, and drive that all the way down. And you can use a pair of pliers, a pair of needle nose pliers, or a 3/8 socket to tighten that down, or a 3/8 wrench. And what we're going to want to do is make sure it's not too tight, that it's bending it, but that's going to then go onto the mag back print on top of that, which is going to be this one here. Line up the shapes, the same thing as before with these tabs, but you want the hex nut to be oriented properly into the slot in that mag back. So we want a flat part of the nut to be facing up like that. Then we'll slide this on. There we go. Perfect fit. That Petchy came out nice. All right. Now here's the tricky part. We're then going to assemble it all together. You want to assemble it together with the rest of this. So through all this, you have to then put your grip on. You have to do it that way because some people find out that, for example, you can't fit the trigger and everything through here. I mean, you can fit the trigger, but you can't fit the rest of the grip assembly, which is this guy. You can't fit this through here. But you have to connect the sear to here, so you have to go through here. And really the best way to do that, really the only way to do that, is to do the grip onto the sear and then the whole body onto the buttstock and go from there. So the order of operations is kind of a pain, but here we go. So what I'll do first is I'll install my spring for the sear to the handle. There we go. And then using some form of magic, I'm going to connect the end of that spring all the way down to the hook on the bottom of this frame piece. Actually, it might be easier to go the other way around. I'm gonna go grip, hook. Yeah, it's easier. So I'm gonna go grip, hook, sear. So you gotta use some magic though, because you gotta pull up pretty far. It's pretty tensioned. Non-ideal spring placement, if you ask me. If you want, you can get our modified files to make your life easier, but these are the original files. All right, so you gotta go through there. There you go. Oh, no. All right, try again. I believe this is easy to do this. You gotta get the shape too. So, that guy there. Take that looper right here. We'll hold that spring on, probably not let go. Now let the spring off the post, pull that tight, connect it here, and then bring the pick up just enough to move the spring, and you go. Victory! All right. That's the hardest part right there. Get that on there. All right. Now you also have to install your grip. This is not a blaster where you can easily swap out the grip because of how it mounts in. There is no designed in slot to stick a hex nut that will then be captive inside the handle that you can then put a screw in, as far as I'm aware. So what works the best is take an 1.5 inch long screw, put the screw through here, facing down like that, and then shove that screw all the way to the bottom, like that, okay? And then you can put your grip on and then cap that with a lock nut on the bottom. If you've assembled a modular vertical foregrip, the method is the same, where you will hold the nut onto the bottom and then tighten the screw on the top. So we're gonna put the grip on, like so. What you can do is you can eyeball the nut, drop the nut on there, get that lined up, and try to do this the normal hard way, and then I'll show you an easier way. So when you get that hex nut in there, you can use your finger to make sure it's lined up on the screw. Then while holding that hex nut in there, or the lock nut, tighten that screw. There you go. And I can feel that nut spinning. So I have to hold that nut in place. So once I get it started though, there you go. Then I can use a pair of pliers and hold the nut in place. That's how you do it. Or easier way is stick the nut in a socket like this and then drive it from the bottom. We got that together. Then I'm gonna put my trigger in and put a 1/16 pin through that, hold it together. If your pin is loose, you want to use a drop of super glue to hold the pin in place. Go right there. Line that up, push it through. If your pins are right, you should be able to push it through and have it bite into the back side and just wedge in there. And then that should activate everything. I'm gonna make sure that the catch, when we install it, will be able to fit and spin. It is way too tight. We'll try that. All right, so it's gonna go in with the catch, point it down like that. Yeah, like that. And then we're gonna slide this on with that in there. The prong on the catch should line up with the notch on the catch plate. Just like that. There you go. So we're going to then add our second U channel now. And again, you want to make sure that that fits. It's not too tight. So I can already tell it's kind of tight up in here. So, will those holes all line up? Now this will pull the prints some more. You can go a little hard on those. Don't go too hard though. You can strip your prints or rip those or you can rip those hex standoffs through the prints. Don't go too tight. And then we'll see where we're at with the alignment and everything. You can see that I didn't get fully inside the U channel, so I got a bigger gap here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work that in, make sure I can release that sear. This has happened a couple times. the original files as well. If you want our modified files for a little better fit, let us know. What I also should have done, that I failed to mention, is test fit my plunger tube. This is going to be a tight fit in your prints. So, if it's too tight, we'll know that. Yep, that's pretty tight. So we got some squeezing going on, because I mean it fit well at first. It got tighter, so we got some squeezing still on the U channels. I'm gonna put some lube in there as well, and then maybe file that out to loosen it up. So I've got my trigger and my sear actuating correctly. Then I'm going to assemble my internals so that way I can slide everything in. So my plunger consists of my plunger rod, my plunger cap, threaded rod, 2 lock nuts, and I like to use a metal washer like the Spring Thunder and other builds, so that way my catch surface isn't printed but is instead metal. And of course, some 123 O-rings. Now I've updated this to use a 123 O-ring as the shock pad as well. If you had the original U Caliburn hardware kit, you can instead use your rubber shock pad. First I'm going to assemble my plunger rod. Lock nut, threaded rod. Oops. This is gonna work. There we go. Through the lock nut. You want to make sure that your rod goes fully through the nylon on your lock nut, otherwise you could risk loosening over time due to vibrations. Then I'm going to do my washer, my cap, my other lock nut. For this one, of course, handy dandy rat socket. Tighten that down nice and tight. And then we'll want to, what I also would like to do is make sure I have more sticking out the front side than the back side. So what I'm going to do is, you want more of the rod sticking out the front than the back because you have clearance in the plunger tube for the extra rod. Why isn't the rod cut perfectly? Well, because this is the same rod as the Caliburn uses. Just tighten that down until it all sits nice. Then one O-ring for seal, another O-ring for... Then one O-ring for the seal, another O-ring for the shock pad. There we go. There we go. That'll work. Okay. Then, while I'm here, I'm going to assemble my bolt and my plunger tube assembly. Unit bolt. So I've installed the ram. You just push it down until it bottoms out. I use the press for this, but get our most up-to-date files and your fit will be better. And then we're going to use the Ezekiel method. We're not going to glue this on because I don't like to build things made out of glue. So I'm going to install these screws. I'm just going to install these just until they bite into the ram core. These will hold the ram core in and prevent it from loosening, even though it's too tight anyway. So I doubt it's going to go anywhere. Okay. You just want these to just bite into the ram core just a little bit. Right there. Okay. And then we're going to do an 012 O-ring on the tip for the air seal, and 123 O-rings on the base. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use alcohol to clean these O-rings really well so there's no grease or anything on them. I'm going to apply some alcohol to a paper towel here. And then apply that to my O-rings, kind of make them nice and clean. Make sure there's no dirt or grease on those at all. Do the same thing on my plunger tube. Okay, and then I'm going to put them together. And it'll be a really tight fit. Hopefully it'll actually fit though. There we go, give it a little twist and push. Yeah, that's perfect. So friction only will get us where we want to go. Just give that a pull and it shouldn't come out. So no glue needed, perfect air seal. You can see those O-rings nice and smushed. Then we're gonna fit that into everything. So we're gonna take our spring guide. Now I was gonna build this with the K25, but another piece that I was waiting on, it turns out that I printed the wrong spring guides for a K26. So I'm gonna use a 26 instead of a 25. Okay, so we're gonna use a 26 here. Fits the nats there. We're gonna put the spring guide down into the blaster first. So I'll just go all the way down if we're lucky. And then we'll put our spring in. Put that in the middle of the spring guide. Then we'll take our plunger rod thing, stick that on. And then I'm gonna lube my plunger tube. And then while I'm here, I'm gonna lube this O-ring on the tip, sealing the barrel a little bit. I'm gonna install this guy. Just like this. Let's see how it works, how my prints came out and all that. Let's sit down and do this so you guys can see. There you go, plunger on the core, make sure nothing, make sure, see how I bent back there? I wanna make sure that's straight. So I'm gonna do that again. There you go, make sure the O-ring is sit straight. Then I'm gonna put that on, spring in the guide, pull the trigger. So we should be able to pull all the way back so it primes like that, and it stays back. Perfect. And pull the trigger, fires. Perfect. Okay. At this juncture, I'm going to then secure. Well, I'm going to prime it. Don't pull the trigger though. Okay. So then, next, I'm going to do the mag back. Slide that on. Okay. And that should line up. Then I'm going to do 2 more 440s. Then I'm gonna do the dart jam. Not gonna pull the trigger by accident. Then I'm gonna do the mag front. I'm gonna avoid the trigger. Safety wise, might be better to actually de-prime the blaster, but there we go. Now this is gonna get topped off with another hex nut, finally. Okay, I'm gonna sit that down and then pinch. Okay, while I'm here, I'm gonna go ahead and do the half of the mag well and mag release. The right half, I'm gonna do screw. Just enough so it locks down, don't wanna strip that. But I'm gonna take a pin, make sure it's nice and loose in the mag release, and then line up the hole in the mag release with the hole in the mag back. Put those in together, and it sits perfect. Okay, and then I'll cap that off with the other half of the mag side. Okay, and then the final steps here are to assemble the rest of it. So we've got the front shroud here. I'll obviously go this way. Mid shroud, I should say. And again, same thing, you want to make sure you line up. Yeah, well, we'll fix that later. Make sure you line this guy up so you have one flat facing up. So it slides in, just like that. Give it a press, pops right in. Hole lines up, perfect. And then this thing here, perfect as well. And there we go. Done. If you need to adjust the catch or anything like that, again, come back here. This one seems to reset enough. If it doesn't though, then you'd want to check out this back end, maybe loosen the screws here, check your tightness of your screws, make sure the prints fit in the U channels all right. This one somehow worked, just with the default files. This is a 14-inch barrel, so a little undersized. but it sticks out just right. So 14-inch barrel, you still have a couple inches sticking out. Prime's back. Let's test that air seal. It's about a 3-second air seal, but still leaky. That's probably due to the plunger. Getting that hex nut in there, probably leaking some air through the print of the plunger or through the hole with the threaded rod. Then if you want to, you can add this guy. Glue or screw it in. There you go. Plenty of extra screws. Let's do some chronograph tests with some worker high-end Gen 3 Pluses and see what we get. Okay, so we've got 3 worker high-end Gen 3 Pluses and a mag adapter. K26. Fits just right. See what we get. Arm is killing me today. $222, $221. That is very consistent. Oh. $206. Default 14-inch barrel, average air seal. Arm's so tired, but that works. Catches great and fires. Great. Jumping back to the mag release, we'll make sure that these pieces can fit. If they don't, here's an 1/8. Ooh. .1/8 seems to work. Work just fine. So 1/8 drill bit to get those pegs in. Line up those holes, put the pin in. Cap it with a 440. Help. Then we'll reattach the spring. Drop the spring down in there. Use a little pick. These are easy. Okay, nope, wrap around. Okay. There we go. Okay, I took this bar off just so I could test it with another bar to see if the bars fit, and the bars fit really nice. Really nice. I'll line up nice and perfect. I also wanted to mention, while we're here, you could try a colored or anodized U channel. That is so smooth. Fingerprints all over it though, but drop that in and boom, it fits. Holes line up. Imagine that in light blue or nice white, depending on your color scheme, but I'll stick with the silver for now. Just for fun, here is a standard 16-inch 509 barrel. $267. All I did is change a barrel. There you go, $257. Nice. That's a 16-inch 509 K26. Man, I've got a better barrel than that. I gotta imagine like a brass aluminum barrel.